let's get cracking, shall we? On my 2025 Dream Pokemon Day. Okay, before we get caught up in all these dreams of what could be and what could just make this year the best year in Pokemon history, let's just start off with the realistic thing, shall we? So, let's start off with more Pokemon TCG Pocket. As someone who's personally gotten into the actual card game the last few months as well, I mean, I'm an OG, guys. I started before Pocket. Everyone's has to start somewhere, and it was slightly disappointing at the launch where like a lot of the cards are just toned down a bit. Like, it's very basic. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but that just means that hopefully as time goes on we're going to start getting more complex and closer to the actual card game. But I mean, let's be for real, they have killed it with all the artworks. I'm still chasing that Darkrai. I mean, I did get 2 full arts, but I'm still chasing the Darkrai art. I mean, the game is really fun as it is, to be fair. I mean, it's perfect as a casual experience, which is what it's designed to be. It's just that I, as you can tell, I'm a bit of a nerd, and I like to go all in on things. I mean, the collecting side of the game, I've got no complaint as well, but just, I mean, as someone who's played Marvel Snap, just a little bit more on that gameplay side, and they could be onto the next Pokemon Go, really. So, TCG Pocket has killed it in terms of collecting. It's really fun, and hopefully that'll continue. Just as someone who's played Marvel Snap, I feel like there's a lot of room to do more interesting things in the collectible card game space digitally. Like the random generation things, because I don't know if anyone's played Marvel Snap, but my favourite archetype in that is the Shield Agents, where it literally just allows you to play with cards that aren't in your deck. It's genius. I think realistically we will expect another mini set announcement for Pokemon Day. Hopefully either related to Giratina or Arceus. A lot of people lean towards Arceus because mythical, etc. But I feel like they'll probably save that for its own thing, because like Arceus didn't get its own set in the TC. I mean, that's not true. We won't get nitpicky with when Arceus got set, but I think Giratina is more likely, considering that didn't get an EX either. Diamond, Pearl, Platinum just makes sense. I think the other thing that we could quite realistically see is a Pokemon movie. We haven't got a Pokemon movie in years. I mean, growing up, like, I think I had Jirachi Wishmaker and Pokemon Forever with Celebi on DVD as a kid. I rinsed them so much. It just, to take a step back out of the generic Ash plot lines, it's just a really cool way, especially because most of them are centered around legendary Pokemon, to delve into the lore. And I think that it's something we've been missing the last few years, so who knows? Hopefully we could see enough one. Maybe, let's hope it's not a Petulant one, because that could just be a lot of funky chicken dances. So, I mean, the options are really endless, because if they want to still keep Ash to the side, because they had started doing like the whole alternate universe Ash kind of thing in the movies, but if they aren't quite ready to touch Ash again, there are so much, like, to tie into ZA, you go and give us the Pokemon War, the original ultimate weapon. Growing up as a kid, like, I actually think the Rise of Darkrai movie, I mean, not only has it been my favourite Pokemon for years because of it, but I think it might have been the first time I'd cried at a movie. Like, it is just, they are just something different. They just have more weight to them. So I really hope that that's something that we see announced. I think the biggest and most obvious thing that everyone's got on their bingo cards, it's the gimme, is Legend ZA. It's something that everyone got really excited for when it was announced a year ago. And I remember when it got announced, I was buzzing. I went and set out a whole entire bucket list of things to do for ZA, because it's the next game. I even managed to get some of my Gen 4, rather than Gen 1 mates to actually come and onboard into the Switch era, because it's something that enticed a lot of people back into the franchise. And I think that really we should be expecting to see the starters at this point. I mean, personally, we'll save that for another video. But yeah, I think it's something that we'll definitely see, and yeah, I think I'll make another video on like sort of what I've been working on while I've been waiting for ZA and what I've still got left to do. Like, I'm in the middle of a Raikou reset right now. Pretty long. BDSP, please ZA, just let us hunt more legendaries, man. Okay. That is just about it for the things we can reasonably expect, because, I mean, obviously there'll be announcements for Unite and Go, but I can't lie, other than, like, the odd community day, like, when my boyfriend Coco is getting a community day, free shinies. I mean, I don't really play the game that much anymore, so I'm just going to leave that to one side for other people to deal with, because at the end of the day, these aren't just predictions, these are also, like, what I want to see personally. So let's start going a little bit more out there. I think that there is still opportunity for us to get more DLC for Scarlet and Violet, because when you think about it, with ZA coming around hopefully this year, we don't actually expect that to become the main title for online play, like competitive, VGC, etc. Whilst I've never been an avid player myself, I think that after 4 or 5 years of the same game, it might get a little bit stale. So I feel like if we got some kind of, even just a patch, it doesn't have to be a DLC, but a patch introducing new megas or just the new Pokemon, for instance, like Free My Boy, I think it's Furfrou, who still hasn't been in a Switch title. I think there's a few others. Just the things like that we expect to see in ZA, if they could actually put that in Scarlet and Violet as well, I feel like would just be a nice fresh addition. Not that I can see Furfrou really dominating the VGC meta, but who knows? I think that it's something that really, this is getting a bit more pie in the sky, even though we're in the intermediary category right now. I would love to see them add something like they did in Crown Tundra, where you can shiny hunt more legendaries, because them all being, I mean, realistically we won't, because in Blueberry Academy we were able to go and meet them all around Paldea, and they were shiny locked there, so I don't think we can get it, but we can dream. We can dream. Like, even just an event distribution where we can get the shiny legendaries from Scarlet and Violet, because I think they genuinely might be some of the best shinies in the entire franchise. Like, that's saying something, but I think it would be just a little bit of fun for a shiny hunter like myself. Okay, next thing that I think is still quite feasible is Black and White remakes, baby. Hell yeah. I mean, we'll ignore the name of my channel for now, and why I might be excited about that. In all seriousness though, I think it is actually on the cards. I mean, they've been starting to get closer and closer in between the remake cycles, and with the addition of other things pointing towards it, like Black Bolt and White Flare, the trademark for, I believe it's the July special set coming out in the TCG. I feel like that could tie into something, and especially if we saw them move to an outsource model for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So that should make it a lot easier for them to develop these remakes, and I feel like if we don't get it this year, we could have to wait a couple more years before they develop something for the Switch 2. So I feel like it's not now or never, obviously, because it will come around when it comes around, but I feel like the Black and White remakes, again, something to re-entice old fans, and I think it would be a nostalgia trip for myself personally, because they were the first games I really got to see the launch cycle for, because I was born in 2004, so I mean, I was a bit too early for Diamond and Pearl. I mean, I did actually get my first cartridge for Soul Silver, but I was still a kid. I didn't really get the idea by that point. But no, I remember seeing all the trailers for Black and White, and seeing Sky Arrow Bridge for the first time, seeing how they managed to push the graphics on the 2DS. It was incredible. And I still remember, like, seeing Haxorus for the first time. I think there might be a few other Pokemon as well, but the one that really sticks in my brain is like Haxorus and Hydreigon, when they were shown at the end of the trailers, just as a kid, just awesome. And I think that Black and White has one of the strongest dexes, and I feel like most of the hate towards it is just because, oh, it's a Gen 1 ripoff and you weren't able to access those older Pokemon, so it kind of naturally drew unnecessary hate. So again, I think that most fans, especially with the recent support it's had the last couple years, I think Black and White remakes would go down a treat. Okay, so the last thing before we really start dreaming is there's been whispers about this live-action Netflix series going around for the last few years. And I mean, Detective Pikachu was incredible. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the designs had better be left undesigned, to be honest. But on the whole, they were quite interesting. Seeing this sort of reimagination of this animated franchise in live action, and my boy Ryan Reynolds helming it, it was a fun watch for sure. And I feel like it's definitely something that they could leverage to try and get a new audience. Because I don't know about anyone else, but I speak to people all the time who are like, why would I want to watch that? It's animated. Or like things, even like the masterpieces like Arcane in recent years. Like I've tried recommending that to people, but it's animated. It's for kids. So I feel like live action is definitely something that Pokemon should look to build on and make it for maybe a slight, not a mature audience, but more for family viewers, and try and get the parents involved a bit more. I think, yeah, it's definitely something that there's been whispers for a long time, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got something relating to it for 2025. Now we're at the point where you're going to have to hear me out. Let me cook. Okay, so first off on my list would be a true Pokemon anime. I'm not talking, because whilst Horizons admittedly has made it more serialized, more of a plot that we can actually follow and be intrigued by, a few plot twists, a bit more lore, I like it, I vibe with it, but it's still aimed at a target audience of like 6 to 12 year olds really. I feel like a lot of shows, like for instance the original iteration of Ben 10 started on, I mean, always stayed on Cartoon Network, but you got the original audience, like it was for people like me who were like 5 or 6 at the time, and then it aged with their audience so they could follow it into their teenage years. I feel like that's something we've missed with Pokemon. Like I feel like a proper anime, like imagine Jujutsu Kaisen with Pokemon. Like, okay, maybe pushing it a bit too much there, but there's so many mature stories that we could get from a franchise with such a rich lore as Pokemon. I go back to the movies earlier I mentioned, like Pokemon War, or just following somebody throughout their journey like we did with Ash, except it's a bit more realistic, and I mean they don't try and explain everything every episode, you know, just to try and make it that much more intense. I feel like it could really go somewhere, and I think I'd love to tell it. Like the storytelling improvements in Scarlet and Violet was unbelievable. Like could you even just like not, I don't know how you'd, and just a anime adaptation of the Scarlet and Violet story would be something I'd watch. I think that there's a lot of room for a more mature anime, especially with its surging in popularity in recent years. Like, it's not as niche as it used to be, so I don't see why they wouldn't. Okay, so I think we've all had enough of the Pokemon Day announcements where we get Pokemon Masters EX or Pokemon Cafe Remix, or how about Pokemon Go again? So, as I mentioned earlier, Pokemon Go personally has gotten quite stale for me. It was one of, if not the best times of my life in, I believe it was 2016 when it came out. I think I was in year 8 in secondary school. So, I mean, I was always a big kid, so I was very much a homebody indoors person, but I was out the entire summer. But I loved it. Me and a group of my friends would be out. There were next to no Pokestops anywhere near us. There were, I think, 4 or 5 in an area just where it was scattered all around a massive field we had, where there was a couple gyms there, and we just walked between them, continuously finding odd Pokemon and catching them. But there was still that sense of novelty and awe there. that has just kind of worn off over the years. Even though they've made so many improvements and there's so much more content nowadays, it just doesn't feel the same. It just feels like you don't have the same agency, because there's an encounter table each season of like 20 Pokemon, and that's all you see. And once you register them to your Pokedex, it's like, why do I care about this? There's no way to target Pokemon, or there's no way to really feel like you're going on an adventure like you did in those days. It's like, there feels like there's no progression with the level curve, because I need like 15 million XP to level up, and it's like, I might get there in a few years, but there's no, like, I'm going out on a session to achieve something. There's no way you can really do that, and especially with the way they've kind of, like, pedaled back on remote raids, it's not something that's like, oh, I want to go do a raid, I can go do it. Because you either need a group of friends locally, because guess what? Everyone else has fallen off the game, you don't really have that much anymore. It just makes it really difficult to play. So even though back in the day all we were doing was walking around catching Caterpies and Pidgeys, we actually enjoyed it more than we do now. It just doesn't seem, I don't know, it just doesn't seem logical, but there just doesn't feel like there's as much sense of progression. Like, even look at the recent challenges they've added to Pokemon Home, where you complete your decks for different regions or games and you get a shiny mythical. There's no real achievement in Pokemon, because you do have the medal system, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel like you get much from it. Like, I haven't really looked at chasing one of those ever, I think. I just feel like there's something missing from it, and I feel like trying to, you don't necessarily have to label it Pokemon Go again, but just an overhaul to this kind of progression system, I feel like it might actually get more people playing the game again. You know, does anyone remember Palworld? Huh. Whilst I never actually played it myself, I did play Ark a few years back, and I really enjoyed it. So, the survival game in the Pokemon world is genius. I don't know why they haven't tried it yet. I feel like it would get so, like, you saw there's an appetite with it. Palworld is the proof. I mean, again, because it doesn't have that same cultural cachet that Pokemon does, it didn't have the same staying power. But a live service Pokemon survival game, why haven't we got that? Really experimented with before. It's an opportunity to capture a new audience. Like I said earlier, like, I've started getting into the TCG the last few months, and the amount of people who I meet there who are fans of the Pokemon TCG, they don't really play the games much. They might have as a kid, but like, they don't really engage with the franchise that much outside of the TCG, and yet they play it week in, week out. Like, it's people might just be a Unite fan, a TCG fan. This is a perfect opportunity to get a whole new, like, Minecraft is the biggest game ever. It's a survival game. So there's a huge untapped market there. Like, even when we say about that, there's proof in the pudding. People have gone and created Pokemon mods for Minecraft. So give it to us. Why not? Whilst we're still talking about spin-offs, Pokemon Conquest. I know not everyone played it, but when I played it as a kid, I really enjoyed it. It might need a few graphical improvements, sure, but I'd be happy with a one-to-one port or a remake, but I feel like it's something that's really cool. And again, I keep on mentioning the Pokemon World, like, the region of Ransai, shaped like Arceus, is awesome. Like, again, like I say with survival games, there's a huge market out there, people who like strategy games. I don't see why they wouldn't. And you could, it doesn't have to be Pokemon Conquest. You can theme it around, like, even like, how about Civilizations? That's a huge market as well. Like, could you imagine that? But instead of the ancient Egyptians and the Romans, you have the Draconids, or the dwellers of Ultra Space, or the people from a dystopian future these Paradox Pokemon come from. I think it could genuinely blow up. I think it would be really interesting, and again, it would be another avenue to explore the lore more. I promise you, I might have talked your ears off, but we're starting to get towards the end. Again, these might not be as pie in the sky like unrealistic as the last few I've mentioned, but they are things that I don't realistically see happening this Pokemon Day. Okay, so we all saw the Terra League, right? Project Mistral is something that I'll credit Hidden Power for discussing quite a lot. I mean, I don't know whether the mainstream really saw much of it, but it's awesome. Instead, I can't remember whether it was for the 2026 Worlds or the 2025 Worlds they were planning on starting it. Whereas they wanted the World Championships to, rather than be a celebration of Pokemon like it is now, make the World Championships, the pinnacle of competitive play, and then create either a side event or a separate event called Project Mistral, which is essentially a Pokemon theme park. Who doesn't want that? Like, I remember in 2019, my parents took me to Florida for the first time. Probably the only time. But it's one of the most magical experiences of my life. Like, I want to see Fido Nut stands, or I want to see Reggie roller coasters, and Kurt's workshop where you design and create your own Pokeball like they do in Savi's workshop in Galaxy's Edge. It would be incredible. Lastly, we could see it, but I doubt they'd want to take the spotlight away from Legends ZA. How about we got the Gen 10 teaser? I'm not saying we have the game title announced and, oh, coming 2026, winter, whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying a little tease. Like, I remember when they did the same Pokemon Direct where they did the Daybreak update for Legends Arceus, the teaser we got at the end of that for Scarlet and Violet was incredible, because nobody knew what it was, because it wasn't like in your face telling you what everything was. It was just, it looked like Night in the Museum, and then it ended with teasing the starters. Something like that, just to tantalize our taste buds, I would love to see, because Gen 10 is going to be huge, and that is something we'll discuss another day. So, those are all my predictions, dreams, wants. Some realistic, some maybe not. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you want from Pokemon Day. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.